Do you know why your reactions tighten when pressure quietly shapes your focus? What if invisible patterns already trained your attention to obey hidden clocks? If you want unbreakable calm under tests, listen with rare precision. Manipulation begins with attention capture, then meaning capture, then timing capture. Strong minds reverse this order by reclaiming attention before meaning appears. This is the first subtle way. Attention reclamation under silent pressure. When attention is yours, feelings slow down and choice becomes visible. When attention is stolen, emotions speed up and options disappear. So the task is simple in words and difficult in practice. Learn the inner ritual that takes back attention without creating noise. Scan, breathe, name, and question, then allow timing to select expression. The scan is brief and neutral. Eyes, jaw, shoulders, and stomach. You observe signals without judgment. You do not fix anything yet. Observation before correction prevents identity from fusing with the surge. Distance returns, and distance restores room for clean thinking. The breath must be neutral, not deep and not dramatic. Inhale gently, pause shortly, exhale slightly longer with ease. 2 neutral breaths convince the body that danger is manageable. Calm body lowers the volume on automatic narratives. Now, naming converts heat into information inside a single quiet phrase. Say softly inside, pressure rising, or bait detected, or boundary touched. Naming is not self-talk for comfort. It is a structural move. You separate self from signal. Then the signal loses command power. The question then widens your frame beyond the first offered story. Ask, what meaning is being suggested, and who benefits if accepted? Answers to this question reveal the hidden lever beneath the moment. Lever awareness is the birthplace of self-control under influence. This first way seems small and slow, yet it is decisive because attention precedes meaning. Whoever owns attention writes the script. Manipulators force attention toward speed. Strong minds force attention toward space. Space allows measured response, without losing dignity or clarity. Space also exposes which emotions are genuine and which are borrowed. Borrowed emotions often vanish when oxygen returns to awareness. The second subtle way is frame transmutation through clean language. Frames decide what anything means. Before any sentence begins, accept the wrong frame, and your best words strengthen the wrong story. Refuse the first frame politely, and your options multiply immediately. You transmute frames by moving from accusation to criteria gracefully. Criteria shift talk from personal heat to shared verification. Use calm phrases that change the scoreboard without provoking defense. Say, let us define the standard we will use right now. Say, if accuracy matters, we should compare options against explicit trade-offs. Say, I will respond after review, not before, and not during pressure. Each line lowers heat without losing firmness or clarity. People feel fairness, and fairness reduces the appetite for domination. Frame transmutation also protects identity from capture. Insults and praise attempt to hook identity to external judgment. Hooks are powerful because they pretend to measure your essence. Split behavior from being the instant you feel the pull. Say inside, this concerns action, not worth, and action can change identity. Separation keeps the nervous system quiet enough to think. The third subtle way is tempo sovereignty. Under social clocks. Tempo is the ruler of perception in every tense interaction. Fast tempo makes you readable, and therefore steerable. Slow, clean tempo makes you unreadable and therefore immune. Count 2 slow heartbeats before speech. Then use short, precise sentences. Let pauses carry weight instead of extra words carrying heat. Tempo sovereignty is not passive delay, it is deliberate pacing. When others rush, you slow. When others stall, you steady. The room begins to align with your cadence unconsciously. Cadence signals authority without aggression or display. Authority gained through cadence is difficult to challenge directly. People rarely fight the clock that feels fair and calm. These 3 ways appear separate, yet they are one system. Attention reclamation creates space. Frame transmutation structures meaning. Tempo sovereignty protects delivery so structure reaches listeners intact. Together, they turn manipulation into training fuel for self-command. Every provocation becomes a drill for stronger awareness and cleaner language. Every test becomes an opportunity to tune rhythm and preserve dignity. You can deepen attention reclamation through daily low-stakes practice. Choose small triggers like waiting, delays, or mild disagreement. Run the ritual quickly, scan, breathe, name, and question. Write one simple line afterwards to store the lesson. Say, trigger noted, protocol used, state recovered, insight saved. Repetition wires the protocol into posture rather than effort. You can sharpen frame transmutation through a phrasing bank. Prepare cooling lines, boundary lines, and review lines in advanced. Cooling lines lower heat without surrendering ground, or standards at boundary lines protect. Criteria with gentle firmness and neutrality. Review. Lines create time windows that feel transparent and fair. Prepared language prevents scrambling, and scrambling attracts control. You can strengthen tempo sovereignty through conscious silence drills. Sit in a conversation and allow 2 extra beats before answers. Maintain soft eyes and relaxed shoulders while holding the pause. Your silence becomes presence instead of absence, or retreat. Presence without force draws respect because it calms the nervous system. People trust what calms them more than what convinces them. Manipulators survive on urgency, validation, and guilt. Urgency steals time. Validation steals identity. Guilt steals agency, attention reclamation, returns time to you without permission. Frame transmutation returns identity to you without argument. Tempo sovereignty returns agency to you without conflict. These returns create a mind that cannot be bought by pressure. Do not confuse discipline with suppression. They are not the same. Suppression buries emotion and leaks through tone later. Discipline channels emotion into language and timing with awareness. Anger becomes assertion. Sadness becomes depth. Fear becomes foresight. Conversion replaces leakage with signal, and signal directs outcomes. Strong minds measure success by clarity, not by silence. Also beware the pride trap around composure. It appears quickly. Admiring your stillness turns posture into performance. Performance invites attacks that target your image of control. Stay practical, not ornamental. Stay useful, not impressive. Quiet minds prefer reliable outcomes over dramatic displays. Reliability wins long games that theatrics always lose. You may notice another pattern during this training. Sometimes praise feels heavier than insult without clear reason. That weight signals a hidden contract inside the compliment. Compliments can be clean gratitude or covert guidance toward obedience. Your task is not suspicion. Your task is gentle verification. Sequence and motive reveal truth more clearly than tone or volume. The system you are building is not hard power. It is soft control over inner levers that drive outer influence. People begin adjusting to your cadence before they understand why. Rooms cool down when you speak because your timing feels fair. Even resistance softens when structure feels transparent and consistent. This is influence through atmosphere rather than argument. You are not trying to dominate. You are trying to remain sovereign. Sovereignty means owning your state under any emotional climate. When state remains yours, strategy remains yours, and outcomes improve. Sustainable power grows from elegant restraint and precise language. Elegance is pressure handled with minimum motion and maximum clarity. Clarity is the currency that never loses value under scrutiny. Notice the quiet transformation already forming inside your awareness. You respond slower. You speak cleaner. You feel less drain. You sense frames before they land, and you move them gently. You set tempo without force, and people breathe easier around you. This is not luck. This is the system operating as designed. Systems beat moods because systems do not forget under stress. Yet one question must be answered before this manual advances. What happens when someone mirrors your calm perfectly to enter your trust? When rhythm matches yours, language echoes yours, and motives hide beneath grace, will your 3 ways still protect you? Or will harmony quietly rewrite your compass? Do you know why manipulators often appear calm while controlling chaos around them? What if their stillness is not peace, but a hidden system designed to guide your reactions? If you want to reclaim power, you must understand how strong minds use control itself as reflection. The second subtle way strong minds turn manipulation into self-control is through mirror decoding. They do not resist manipulation. They study it until it reveals its structure. Most people react to provocation emotionally, but intelligent minds analyze rhythm, tone, and timing. They treat manipulation like a coded message instead of an insult. Every attempt to control you is data about the manipulator's nervous system. The more you observe patterns, the less power they hold. Mirror decoding begins with sensory neutrality. You must stop translating tone into threat and start translating it into pattern. Listen for pacing, volume, and emotional shifts without interpreting motive. This pauses the primitive reflex to fight or flee. The manipulator's entire design depends on your participation in emotional rhythm. The moment you study instead of react, their rhythm collapses. Understand that all influence operates through three invisible levers: attention, tone, and timing. Attention decides what you notice. Tone decides what you feel. Timing decides what you believe. The manipulator juggles these levers to keep you reactive but confused. Strong minds reverse engineer these levers through conscious mapping. When someone raises tone, they log it as dominance attempt. When someone delays reply, they log it as control pacing. This turns chaos into charted data, emotion into geometry. Awareness replaces threat perception with system perception. You are no longer inside the game. You are watching the board, and when you see the board, you can choose when to move. Every pause becomes a strategy instead of hesitation. Strong minds stay silent not to avoid, but to observe the laws forming around them. Observation is the invisible act of reclaiming authorship. Mirror decoding also reveals emotional transference. When others use you as a surface for their unprocessed emotion, anger transferred becomes guilt inside you, insecurity transferred becomes duty. Most people absorb the energy and act it out. Strong minds reflect it back through composure and neutral phrasing. They say, "I hear what you're feeling," instead of, "I'm sorry you're upset." The difference is subtle, but it keeps emotional ownership where it belongs. There is another deeper layer: tone interception. Tone interception is noticing not what was said, but how timing and inflection shape message. When someone uses quick interruptions or prolonged pauses, they are negotiating status, not clarity. Each tonal pattern is a pressure test to measure your stability. You respond by keeping your breath steady and words minimal. Stillness under tone pressure disarms power games faster than any argument. You can train mirror decoding with micro-observation drills. Choose one conversation daily and track rhythm. Instead of words, notice speed changes, emotional spikes, or silence after key points. Do not judge, only record mentally. This exercise builds detachment without dullness, awareness without arrogance. After weeks, your mind starts recognizing influence before it touches emotion. There is also verbal redirection, the art of moving energy instead of resisting it. When a manipulator pushes blame, redirect to process, not person. Say, "Let's look at how this started," instead of, "I didn't do that." When they exaggerate facts, redirect to criteria. Say, "Let's verify what counts as evidence." You never argue meaning. You decide terrain. Whoever decides terrain wins without visible conflict. The psychology behind this is simple. Control flows to clarity. Confusion amplifies whoever sounds most certain. But certainty obeys whoever remains calm longest. When you master rhythm, you become the emotional thermostat of the interaction. Others regulate themselves to your state without realizing it. That is how self-control turns into quiet influence. Atmosphere, not assertion, but beware the reflection trap. The manipulator might mirror your calm to regain trust. When two calm surfaces meet, one reflects, one absorbs. You must learn to test alignment without confrontation. Ask neutral questions that require principle, not emotion. Say, "What outcome would you choose if it cost approval?" False calm stumbles when faced with cost-based reasoning. This exposes the difference between sincerity and strategy. Sincerity speaks from value. Strategy speaks from advantage. You are not judging. You are identifying structure. The one who understands structure can stay kind without being captured. Because kindness without boundaries invites control, and boundaries without empathy invite resistance. Balance both, and you become immune to psychological pull. Machiavellian awareness does not remove emotion. It refines it into awareness. You feel everything but believe nothing instantly. You empathize while maintaining verification. You care deeply without becoming dependent on response. This paradox confuses manipulators. Because their tools require emotional symmetry. When symmetry breaks, their influence collapses naturally. Mirror. Decoding transforms every encounter into feedback. What triggers you reveals your hidden attachments. What attracts you reveals your unacknowledged needs. The manipulator only finds doors you never locked. You do not fight them. You study what they found. Then you seal the structure quietly, permanently. You now understand the second law of subtle control. Observation replaces defense, and neutrality becomes armor. But a final question remains unanswered, one that separates sharp awareness from complete mastery. What happens when manipulation no longer comes from others, but from your own mind, the inner voice that flatters, deceives and provokes you to break your calm? Do you know that your mind can manipulate you more precisely than any person ever could? What if the real puppeteer hides inside your reasoning, disguised as self-protection? If you want absolute control, you must unmask the inner manipulator before it rewires your truth. The third subtle way strong minds turn manipulation into self-control is inner reversal, the art of recognizing when your own thoughts use emotional pressure to steal clarity. Most people think manipulation is external, yet the most effective conditioning happens internally. You do not need an enemy to lose freedom, only unchecked self-talk repeating borrowed rules. Every fear, every craving, every impulse is a message written by old influence. The intelligent mind reads the message without signing it again. Inner manipulation begins with the false narrator. It speaks as logic, but its goal is comfort, not accuracy. It says, you must react now or lose control. You must prove worth through perfection. It uses familiar tones because the mind trusts its own voice more than any other. The false narrator is not evil. It is habitual protection turned into tyranny. The way to break it is not argument, but exposure. Exposure means you label the narrative instead of listening to it blindly. Say inside, narration detected, observation active. This simple phrase turns monologue into data. The moment you watch the voice, it stops commanding and starts performing. You can then choose whether its logic serves purpose or fear. Choice converts compulsion into strategy. Every inner manipulator operates through three subtle levers: urgency, identity, and repetition. Urgency rushes you to act before awareness checks motive. Identity ties emotion to self-image, making withdrawal feel like failure. Repetition repeats old judgments until they sound like fact. These levers work only in darkness. Awareness breaks their rhythm instantly. The strong mind observes urgency, separates identity, and limits repetition consciously. Observe urgency by slowing physiology first. Breathe evenly, lower shoulders, and speak one word slower than usual. This physical drag forces cognition to recalibrate timing. When mind speed decreases, perspective expands. No internal voice can command a body that refuses its tempo. Control of timing equals control of narrative. Separate identity by using third-person framing internally. Instead of saying, I am failing, say, the system is under load. This language sounds clinical but creates distance from emotion. Distance restores ability to evaluate instead of self-attack. You become scientist observing experiment, not prisoner defending innocence. Objectivity grows stronger each time emotion meets structured language. Limit repetition by introducing disruption rituals. When negative loops start, stand, move, or change environment briefly. Pattern interruption cuts the neurochemical chain that powers obsession. Every interruption weakens the loop's authority over focus. Manipulation dies in unpredictability. It survives in routine. That is why flexibility is the silent weapon of strong minds. Once the inner manipulator is visible, you must learn reversal technique. Reversal converts the attack into insight by tracing its motive. Ask, what is this thought trying to protect me from? Fear of failure often hides attachment to control. Anger often hides pain of powerlessness. Guilt often hides need for validation. Naming hidden motives converts emotion into education. The next step is reframing self-doubt into calibration. Self-doubt says, you are uncertain, therefore weak. Strong minds translate it as uncertainty detected, recalibration required. This turns insecurity into diagnostic signal instead of verdict. Diagnostics guide growth without draining energy. Doubt becomes compass rather than cage. There is also a quieter enemy, emotional echo. Emotional echo is old pain, repeating under new circumstances. You overreact not to the present but to memory disguised as urgency. The echo manipulates. By pretending to be the moment, awareness breaks. The disguise by asking, is this proportionate to now? Disproportion reveals history pretending to be reality. Internal manipulation also uses reward instead of punishment. The mind flatters itself through fantasies of dominance, success or revenge. Each fantasy releases dopamine, reinforcing illusion of control. But control built on fantasy collapses in contact with reality. Strong minds use visualization not for escape, but for rehearsal. Rehearsal trains reaction, fantasy drains energy. Recognize the trap of self-image addiction. When you become addicted to being calm, intelligent, or superior, your inner manipulator starts protecting that image at all costs. You avoid vulnerability, you reject correction, you hide fatigue. In trying to appear disciplined, you become rigid. Rigidity invites collapse under pressure. The cure is transparency with yourself. Admit emotion privately before it demands expression publicly. Acknowledge tension early while it is still language, not explosion. Self-honesty is not weakness. It is internal audit of power. Only audited systems stay secure. Everything hidden eventually controls you. Inner reversal also uses mental mirrors, converting observation into feedback loop. When you feel strong emotion, mirror it back as data. Say, this tension proves I still care about accuracy. Say, this fear shows a blind spot waiting to be understood. Every mirror line converts chaos into curiosity. Curiosity neutralizes threat faster than suppression ever can. Machiavellian mastery at this stage becomes silent engineering of self. You modify mental environment like architecture, adjusting temperature, removing leaks, reinforcing foundations. You manage thought traffic, emotional airflow, and cognitive noise levels. Control becomes infrastructure, not performance. It runs quietly, unseen, but supports everything above it. But here comes the paradox that breaks many disciplined minds. When you master internal manipulation, the voice of control itself grows seductive. It tells you you are invincible, self-sufficient, beyond correction. This is the final and most dangerous manipulation, pride in awareness. Because pride blinds perception by convincing you that perception is complete. Strong minds stay humble to remain sharp. Humility does not mean doubt. It means openness to new data. You remind yourself that control is temporary and must be renewed daily. The mind's environment decays if not maintained through reflection. Awareness is not a wall, it is a living muscle. And the moment you stop training it, old manipulations return quietly. So the process never ends, it refines. Each external manipulation teaches awareness of structure. Each internal manipulation teaches awareness of origin. The two mirror each other like outer weather and inner climate. Control over both creates emotional equilibrium that feels like quiet gravity. People sense it before they understand it, and they align to it instinctively. But there remains one last secret beyond control. A truth that separates awareness from transcendence. If mastery means turning every manipulation into balance, what happens when balance itself becomes a cage? When neutrality starts hiding from passion and calm begins costing connection? Do you know that balance can become another form of bondage when it loses purpose? What if your calm, once born of awareness, quietly turns into distance from life itself? If you want true mastery, you must learn when to drop control completely. Emotional discipline is a tool, not a throne. Many strong minds fall when they begin worshiping their own stillness. They confuse neutrality with wisdom and silence with depth. But silence without warmth is not power. It is fear, wearing calmness as disguise. The mind that never bends begins to crack. True control includes the intelligence to release control when connection demands it. This final subtle transformation is integration, where awareness serves life instead of protecting ego. Integration is not detachment. It is harmony between power and empathy. A controlled mind that cannot feel is only half awake. You must let emotion return, not as chaos, but as rhythm guided by intelligence. Strong minds use awareness to navigate emotion, not to erase it. They enter the storm intentionally, knowing they can return to stillness at will. Integration begins with intentional vulnerability. Vulnerability is not surrender. It is strategic transparency. You show emotion consciously to maintain humanity, not for approval. You can say, "That affected me," without losing authority. You can admit confusion without losing direction, because strength that hides nothing becomes untouchable. The next step is controlled openness. This means staying receptive without absorbing others' instability. You listen fully while anchoring in your own rhythm. You let emotions of others pass through you like wind through open hands. The secret is to witness without merging, to feel without drowning. That is how power remains compassionate without being captured. Integration also means you must forgive your own fluctuations. Some days you will lose rhythm, react, or overthink. Perfectionism is ego's final trick to keep you enslaved to control. Let imperfection exist without shame. Correct without cruelty. Recover without guilt. Continue without narrative. This self-kindness restores vitality that over-discipline drained away. To evolve from control to mastery, practice dynamic balance. Dynamic balance means movement guided by awareness, not stillness guarded by fear. You adjust tone, timing, and response according to context. Sometimes you lead, sometimes you yield, sometimes you stay silent. You stop needing to win every exchange. Influence now flows naturally. Power becomes flow, not friction. When others manipulate, you no longer resist. You redirect energy gracefully. When emotions rise, you no longer suppress. You transform them into understanding. When praise appears, you no longer crave it. You use it to measure projection. When insults strike, you no longer defend. You watch frames dissolve by themselves. This is self-control evolved into art, effortless, silent, and precise. Machiavellian intelligence at its highest form is not domination but design. You design your emotional ecosystem so that chaos cannot survive within it. You design your communication so that manipulation loses structure. You design your mind so that power feels natural, not performed. Design is invisible mastery. No resistance, no rebellion, only rhythm. And rhythm is control without control. Understand one final law. Awareness that never rests becomes surveillance. You must allow silence, laughter, and wonder to enter again. These are not weaknesses, they are maintenance for perception. Even the sharpest blade dulls without softness. So let curiosity return. Let trust breathe again. Let life touch your structure. Awareness that dances is stronger than awareness that guards. In this final integration, the mind stops fighting manipulation and begins transmuting it. Every insult becomes training for patience. Every compliment becomes reflection for truth. Every temptation becomes test for focus. Every fear becomes teacher for timing. Manipulation is no longer threat. It is material. The alchemist of awareness turns it all into refinement. And yet, one paradox remains. The moment you master control completely, the universe will test it by demanding surrender. You will meet a person, an event, or a truth that no system can contain. You will feel something that no discipline can label, and in that instant, you will understand. Freedom is not control, it is conscious letting go. You can only own what you are willing to release. So let this be the conclusion of the hidden manual. Power begins with awareness, grows through control, and completes in surrender. The mind that can hold all three becomes indestructible. It feels deeply but chooses wisely, speaks softly but commands gravity, stands alone yet stays connected, influences without intention. It no longer fears manipulation, because manipulation becomes impossible without attachment. True mastery is not about remaining untouched. It is about staying undefinable. The world can praise or provoke, and you remain mirror, clear, alive, reflective. Calm becomes compassion, precision becomes presence, control becomes flow, and in that flow, the game ends, because no one can manipulate the one who has nothing left to prove.